Hi, welcome back to the Solana for Developers YouTube series. In this video, we'll discuss how to get the balance of your Solana account. And in particular, I want to discuss how to do this in two different ways. First, we'll do this using the client object of the Solana Python package. And second, we'll get the account balance by directly interacting with the Solana Rpc API. Now, in the background, both of these methods are exactly the same. However, I think it's going to be useful to see this procedure from both of those different perspectives. So, to get started, I'll create a new file called accountbalance.py. And I'll access it up here. Excuse me, there it is. Now, the first piece of information that we need to gather in order to collect the account balance is, of course, the wallet address that we are going to get the account balance of. So to get the wallet address, we'll head over here to our Phantom wallet and copy the wallet address up here. So just for some reference, the easiest way to get the account balance is right here by looking in the Solana Phantom wallet. However, we want to try to access this account balance via Python. And so if everything goes right, the balance of our Solana token should be 0.19 approximately. And this number, $34, the Phantom wallet is just doing a conversion to US dollars based on the current value of the Solana token. So I've copied that wallet address. Let's go back here and paste it. And we are going to be wanting to use this client object, which I mentioned earlier. So I will write from solana.rpc API import client. And to use the client object, I will say Solana client, and I will now initiate the client object, and it takes one parameter, which is an API endpoint, and for right now I'll just call this the mainnet beta URL, and now I'll go back and define this. So the mainnet beta URL is equal to https api.mainnetbeta.solana.com. And so this client object is going to have a variety of different methods which you can use to easily interface with the Solana RPC API. The method we're interested in this video is the getBalance method. I will define balance to be Solana client.get balance, and I'll pass in as a parameter the wallet address. And so before we continue on, I'll just print this out to make sure that everything is working correctly. So I'll run Python 3 account balance. Okay, so we got a valid response, and in particular we have a value. Now this doesn't look exactly the same as what we saw, but we'll get back to that in just a moment. However, let's clean it up. So what we're really interested in is the result and then the value. So we will put those two dictionary keys here. So first result and then value. Print it out one more time. All right. So this number looks similar, but is certainly not equal to our actual Solana account balance. And so it will be useful to discuss that in a little bit more detail. What's going on here is that there's a subtle issue surrounding something called token decimals. So what's wrong here is that this seems to be off by 9 decimal places, in particular a factor of 10 to the power 9. And so what's happening here is that this integer number is what the blockchain sees and what the blockchain deals with. And one reason for that is because integers are a lot easier for the blockchain to do arithmetic with than a floating point number such as this. However, for the user experience, it's sort of unpleasant to see always such large numbers. You want to be able to see a more manageable number, in particular expressed in a decimal. And so this number 0.19 roughly is just showing up on the UI. However, this larger integer number is what the blockchain is dealing with. So if we want to fix this up, what we can do is we can define a UI. UI stands for user interface. So UI balance is going to be equal to our balance times 10 to the power of -9, because right now this is a factor of 10 to the 9 too big. And to make this look a little bit cleaner, because if we just do this, there'll be a little bit of floating point rounding errors. So I'll round it to 9 decimal places. And let's print that out again. Excuse me, I've forgotten to change this to UI balance. So we'll print it one more time. Okay, perfect. So that number, and let's just check one more time to confirm, I believe is exactly the same as what the Phantom wallet is telling us that our Solana balance is. And in fact, the Phantom wallet is cutting off a few of these decimal places, and so getting this with code is actually a bit superior because you get to see all of the 9 total decimal places. So that is how you get the account balance using the client object. However, I want to explain a little bit more what's going on in the background. So let's go back to this web page I have brought up here, and I'll put the link to this Solana documentation in the description below. So this is the Json Rpc Api. And so in the background, what's happening is that this client object is using the URL which I've specified in order to interface with this RPC API. And in particular, we're dealing with the get balance method. And so here's the curl request. And if you want to do it in the same way that we're doing this, you would replace this local host with the mainnet beta URL. But what we're particularly interested in here is this JSON payload. And so now we'll do a post request explicitly using this JSON payload. So I'll define the payload to be equal to this here, but we'll have to clean it up a little bit. And in particular, what is being passed in here as a parameter is the wallet address. So I'll delete this sample wallet address and I'll pass in our wallet address that we've been using. And so now we'll want to get the balance again. I'll call it something slightly different just to distinguish it from the previous balance variable. So I'll say balance RPC, and that we're going to have to make a post request to receive. And so I will use the requests Python package for that. So from requests, we're going to import post. And I will write here post. The first parameter that we need to pass in is, again, the mainnet beta URL. And we'll also pass in the payload in the JSON location. And in order to get something sensible out of this response, we'll have to use the .json method. And the claim here is that actually what this is going to return is the same exact thing as this get balance method. And so what I'll do here, just with that foresight, is already type result and value. And before we deal with the decimal places, let's just go ahead and print that out to make sure that things are working okay. All right, so that seems to be working okay. We've got our previous account balance, and this is our account balance without the decimals. Again, we'll just do it for the sake of completeness, so that the UI balance, which we've gotten from the RPC, is going to be equal to the balance RPC times 10 to the power of -9. And to deal with those floating point errors, we will just round this to 9 decimal places. And here we will print out the UI balance RPC. So we'll run it one last time to make sure that we have everything working correctly. And there it is. So we have successfully gotten the balance of our Solana account. And in particular, we've done that in 2 different ways, or rather 2 ways that look somewhat different, but really are the same in the background. So we got our wallet address, we have our API endpoint. We first created the client object, which is a part of this Solana Python package, and used the get balance method. And the second way we did it is by directly making a post request and passing in the JSON payload. And in practice, I would recommend using the get balance method just because it's a little bit cleaner and more things are going on behind the scenes. However, when you're learning, I think it's dangerous just to directly go and use these client objects, because what's going to happen is as you advance in your career, you're going to realize that sometimes the get balance method is not always present. Sometimes you're going to have to create this kind of thing yourself. And so in the spirit of knowing that you're eventually going to have to create this kind of thing yourself, it's important to also see this more explicitly, what's going on in the background with calling the Solana RPC API directly. All right, so that's it for this video. In the next video, we will begin a detailed discussion of how to transfer Solana tokens from one account to another. Thanks. See you next time.